Hey guys, and welcome back to Bookmas. I am so glad that you guys are here watching, and I hope you guys are enjoying Bookmas so far. I ended up doing this video in the fall and you guys really seemed to like it, so I figured I'd do it again. So today we're going to be doing my winter book recs and my winter TBR. Just to preface, there's not going to be any holiday or Christmassy books in this video just because it's mainly for the winter time and the winter cozy vibes. Obviously you can still read these around the holidays and stuff to get those vibes, but they're not going to be like strictly holiday or Christmas books. So if you're looking for those kind of recommendations, they're not going to be in here. Sorry. But if you do want some cozy winter vibes, you came to the right place. We're gonna go ahead and start out with all the fantasy books that I have on this list. The first one being one of my favorite series of all time, the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I only have the first one with me right now. The other two are loaned out to some friends. And these are just so good. This is a 5-star series for me. This series is about a girl named Evangeline Fox, and one day her true love just stops talking to her and then decides to marry another girl. And she's like, what? So she thinks something's kind of off, so she goes to the Prince of Hearts' church, and he's a fate, which are kind of like gods in their world, and they have a lot of power, and she tries to make a deal with the Prince of Hearts, and that whole time that she's making the deal and a part of book one, it just turns into something completely different, and they end up going on this huge crazy journey together. Her and the Prince of Hearts do. His name is Jax, and this is just one of the best series that I've ever read. I would definitely say this is a fairy tale fantasy, which is absolutely perfect if you've never really read fantasy, never really gotten into it and want to. I feel like this is a perfect gateway because it's kind of in the middle of romance and fantasy. It's not really too much world building, even though there is still world building because it's obviously like in a different world. But I just feel like it's not too confusing. It is also YA, which makes it super easy to read. My favorite from the series is the second one, The Ballad of Never After. I absolutely love that book, and these books are just perfect. They're everything you want in a fantasy series, and I cannot talk about them or rave about them more. I'm sure if you've watched any other of my book recommendation videos or anything of me talking about my favorite books or my 5-star reads, you've definitely heard me babble and talk about this series a lot. So I'm just gonna leave it at that and say that you just need to read this immediately. Okay, the next book is also lended out to a friend because it is also one of my favorite books of all time, one of my favorite reads of the year. And whenever that happens, I just have to like send it out to people because they have to read it immediately because I want to talk to people about it. And that book is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This one is a romantasy, so another one that is super easy to get into for your first fantasy book if you're really wanting to get into fantasy and haven't really read a lot yet. It's also dual POV. It follows our characters Peyton and Kai, and basically in this world there are ordinaries and there are elites. Elites have these almost like magical powers, kind of like superheroes. Some of them are more mundane powers than others, so there's different like hierarchy in the elite society, and basically the whole society is just elites now because the king spread some information that the ordinaries were basically a plague on the elites, and that having ordinaries in their society would continually take away powers and ultimately kill the elites. So Kai is actually the king's son, so he's one of the princes, and he's also the king's enforcer. So anything to do with the king's military, he's like the head of that, and also he goes to kill the ordinaries because the ordinaries have been exiled, so there are supposedly no ordinaries in their society. Here comes Peyton. She's actually an ordinary posing as an elite, and they end up meeting, and it's this whole thing. And this book had me kicking, had me giggling, had me literally, I just had butterflies in my stomach the whole time. The banter between these two characters is so incredible. This is the best romantasy that I have read, and it is just so good. I recommend it to everyone that I can who loves fantasy books, and it's compared a lot to The Red Queen and The Hunger Games. That was Lauren Roberts' like big inspiration whenever she was writing this, and it's her debut novel too, and it's absolutely incredible. The second one comes out next year, and I am so excited. Please read Powerless if you guys have not yet. I literally tabbed and underlined the crap out of that book, and I just love it so much. Peyton and Kai forever, and Kai is just everything. Okay, the next book is one that I just had to include, and it is ACOTAR, aka A Court of Thorns and Roses. You guys have heard about this probably everywhere. I would say that it is the biggest romantasy series ever, especially because of TikTok. I obviously have the first book right here, but I have the rest of the series behind me. I would definitely say that the second and third are my favorites, and the third being like my very favorite, or my most favorite, very favorite. Doesn't really make sense. In the Agatar world, there are fae and then there are humans. And a long time ago, there was a treaty made between the human and the fae, and now they live on separate sides of a wall. Well, our main character, Feyre, ends up killing a wolf that's like super big, and she's like, I'm not sure what's going on, like this is kind of weird. But the wolf ends up being a fae. So a high lord from the fae world ends up coming to Feyre's house and basically saying that, as the treaty states, she can either come with him, live out the rest of her days in Prithian because she killed a high fae, or she can just die. So she obviously picks the first one, and these books are basically about her whole entire journey in Prithian, which is what the fae side of the wall is named. I actually just recently finished this series and I really enjoyed it. There are 2 5-star reads in this series for me, the 2 books that I was talking about, the second and third, and I really loved it. There's some great storytelling, there's some great romance, and yeah, I highly recommend if you want a little bit of romance and a little bit of high stakes. These are the perfect mix of both of those, and I know they're super hyped up, but I just had to include it. Next up, we have another romantasy, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This one kind of took the book talk world by storm, and this is a romantasy, but like heavy on more of like the romance side, but it's in a fantasy world. This is a duology. The second one is coming out in December. It's called Ruthless Vows, and I am so excited for the second one. It's definitely on my winter TBR, and I'm just gonna say this for all of these fantasy books that I'm talking about today, is that I feel like fantasy is such a good genre to read in the winter because it just kind of takes you into another world, and sometimes I feel like in the winter time you need that, just because it can be kind of like lonely and kind of dreary during the winter time, especially because it gets dark so early in the day. So I feel like being able to cozy up with a little book that can kind of take your mind off things and feel like you're transporting into another world and not in your own world where things are just kind of like dark. I mean, that is one of my favorite parts about reading in general, is that you get to go into other worlds and leave your problems like on the outside of the book. I don't know why it took me so long to get there, but I definitely feel like all of these fantasy books that I'm talking about are great for that. So into Divine Rivals, the 2 main characters in this book are Iris and Roman. You get both of their point of views, and basically they're both interning at this newspaper, and they're both competing for a actual job and spot at that newspaper. So we've got some rivals to lovers, some enemies to lovers kind of going on in here, and both of them actually live on different ends of like the wealth spectrum. One of them is like pretty high up and the other one is pretty like low, so you get a lot about both of their lives. And there's also a war going on with the gods in this world. We actually don't get a lot of information about the war in this one, but I know there's more coming in the second book, and I am so excited to read the second book, like I already said. And because it's a duology, knowing that the story is going to be over is crazy, especially because this one leaves off on a huge cliffhanger. But the romance in this book is unlike any other. The writing is super lyrical and beautiful, and I just absolutely love this book. If you want a more romance heavy fantasy, this is definitely the one for you. Next up, we have 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I will definitely just come here and say it right now that if you have not really read a lot of fantasy, I do not recommend this for you. Even for me, who has read quite a bit of fantasy, went into this and I was like super confused, and it took me a long time to get into it. But once I got to like the last fourth of the book, and I know I hate it whenever people say that too, like just wait until the end, just wait until it clicks, all those types of things, but truly you really do just have to get to the end to this book, and it really does pay off, especially with the last few chapters and the cliffhanger you get left on. It's incredible. I'm so excited to read the second one in the series, Crooked Kingdom. I'm definitely reading that this winter. I think the biggest reason why this one was so confusing for me is because it's literally in 7 different point of views, which is absolutely crazy, and I've never really read a book like that. I guess Leigh Bardugo's pretty known for doing stuff like that, but every chapter is from a different character, so it's kind of hard to get into whenever you're learning a lot about this character and then you don't see them for like 5 or 4 chapters. But once you truly get to know the characters and get far enough into it, it just kind of clicks, like I said, and it all comes together. Now to what you're actually wondering is, what is this book about? It's basically about 6 like criminals and thieves, and they're just like very smart people. They're sent by the government to go on this mission to another like nation and basically kidnap a scientist for reasons that you will figure out in the book. And there's a lot of reasons why the government can't do it, obviously, because whatever, they don't want to like go to war and stuff like that, but they send them because they think that they can actually do it. And like I said, they're not really criminals or thieves. It says a convict, a sharpshooter, a runaway, a spy, a heartrender, which is a Grisha, because this is a part of the Grishaverse, which is like a whole another thing that I'm really not gonna explain because it's the only book that I've read in it, and I know about it a little bit, but I don't know enough to explain it, if that makes any sense. And then there's also a thief, and it's basically about them going on this crazy crazy heist slash kidnapping mission. It's really good, kind of crazy, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I'm actually really excited to read the second one. I would definitely recommend this to almost anybody, especially because it's not like crazy fantasy in my opinion. There is some world building. There's little subplots of romance here and there too. I would honestly, again, recommend this to quite literally anybody who wants to read. And then the last one I had to include it, of course, is Harry Potter. This is the first one right here, The Sorcerer's Stone. I have the rest of the series right here. I'm actually rereading this right now just because I thought it would be fun. This is a perfect book for the fall time, but also the winter time, and it just kind of depends on your vibe for when you want to read them. I'm definitely going to be starting my rewatch too. If you guys haven't heard of the Harry Potter series, it's like one of the most popular series ever. It's basically about this boy named Harry, and he goes to a magical school called Hogwarts, and throughout all 7 books he's trying to escape this dark lord that has been after him since he was little. And I guess that's really it. I love these books. They're super nostalgic, super fun for me, and the first 3 are like super short and super easy reads because they are YA, and again, just love these. Super cute, nostalgic, and super fun. Now let's go ahead and get to my romance book recs. The first one is going to be Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. The rest of the series I actually have down here, and they're going to be on my winter TBR. I don't know if I'm going to get to them. I really hope I can. They're just really thick for romance books, not to say that they aren't great, because I really did love this first one, but it's just a lot, especially as somebody who reads a lot of fantasy. You want to go to a romance book and sometimes escape, but they definitely do add to some escapism, and most of the time with these books, it doesn't even feel like they're that long because you kind of fly through them. But anyways, these books are basically about the small town of Knockemout. This one specifically is about Naomi and Knox, and Naomi comes to town because her crazy twin sister Tina needs her for something, and that ends up turning into something completely different. And Knox is kind of just there to like help her out, and he's definitely a little bit grumpy. This is definitely a grumpy sunshine, but I really enjoyed this book. It was just very lighthearted, and there's a random kind of like mystery element in it too, which is kind of funny. I wasn't too crazy about the mystery element, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. It's very cutesy and also pretty spicy too, so if you're looking for something like that, I would highly recommend. It also has those cozy, nice small town vibes, which I love too, and is perfect for the winter time. The next one is just kind of a given, which is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, because it's literally about ice skating and hockey, and when I think about ice, I just think about winter. I feel like that makes perfect sense. So this is a hockey romance, and hockey romances are some of my favorite. They're just so good, and the sports trope just adds so much to a romance that you wouldn't even expect until you read a sports romance. Like if you've read a sports romance, you know that they're just so good. I absolutely love them. This book is dual POV, and it's about Anastasia and Nate. Anastasia is a figure skater. Nate is the captain of the hockey team, and they're both super talented. Their sports are their lives. In this book, they have 2 separate ice skating rinks. So there's one for the figure skaters and then one for the hockey team, and basically something ends up happening to the one for the hockey team, and they end up having to share an ice skating rink. And then I'm gonna say this too because it is on the back of the book, something ends up happening to Anastasia's ice skating partner, and somebody ends up stepping in for him, and this book is just so cute. The found family in here is unlike anything else that I have truly read before. It is so good. When I think of found family, I think of this book, and I just absolutely love these characters. They felt so real to me. They had such real struggles and real life stories, and I love how this starts out as one thing and then it ends as another. At the beginning, I thought it was just going to be this super spicy, steamy, and lusty rom-com, but it just, again, turns into something completely different. It definitely does have its fair share of spice though, just warning you on that one. Next up, I have another small town romance. This is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Honestly, any Sarah Adams book is just like perfect. They are just super easy, fun reads. You know what you're getting whenever you read them, and you're getting just a good, classic, cute romance book. This one specifically is about a girl named Amelia, and she's a pop star, and she's just kind of super stressed. She wants to get away from it for a little bit. She ends up going to the small town of Rome, Kentucky, where she meets Noah. This is dual POV as well, and he is the owner of the pie shop. That's why they're like making pie on the front cover. And honestly, this book is just super cute and cozy, and their little relationship is super precious, and I really enjoyed this one. It was not only a great palate cleanser for me, but I just like really enjoyed it. It was just super cute, lighthearted, and fun, and I loved it. Next up, I actually read this very recently, which is kind of weird because it is almost like an OG book talk book, which is The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. I like loved this. This book is dual POV. It's about Rosie and Lucas. Rosie's best friend and Lucas's cousin Lena ends up going out of town for her honeymoon, and they both end up staying in her apartment while she's gone. It wasn't supposed to end up that way, but it did, and they end up being roommates. And it's just very cute because obviously it's forced proximity. There's a little bit of will they, won't they, and Rosie's kind of had a crush on Lucas like forever. And there's also some fake dating in here. They end up going on little experimental fake dates to help Rosie's writing because she is trying to be an author, and it's just super cute and super fun and lighthearted. It gets a little steamy towards the end, and also the few ending chapters are around Christmas and New Year's, so I feel like it was just kind of perfect for like that wintry season vibe. And it's also set in New York, which I feel like is also just a nice vibe for the winter time. And I don't know, this had me kicking my feet giggling. I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to. I want to read all of her other books now. I know The Spanish Love Deception is actually the one before this one, so I want to read that one. And then she also just recently came out with one. I can't remember what it's called, but I really enjoyed it. Her writing is super like easy to binge, and their love story was just so cute. I love the main character Rosie, and Lucas was just the perfect book boyfriend, guys. I love him. I love this book. Definitely read this if you haven't yet. Next up, we have a book talk favorite, and that is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. When I think of like the ultimate cozy book, this book takes the cake. This book is a childhood friends to lovers, which you guys know I love, and it's also a then and now perspective. This book is about Macy and Elliot, and they basically grow up neighbors, and they both love to read, so they grew up in Macy's little library at her house reading at the same time and just bonding and becoming close and friendly. But then you go to the now timeline and they haven't seen each other in forever, and they run into each other, and things have just totally changed. And this book, like I already said, is just super cozy, super cute and sweet, and there's just some very wholesome moments in here. I will say that I'm personally not the biggest fan of the end, just because of how some things happen, but I do think that if you're going off of vibes, it's a good book to read during the winter time. Okay, now I have one of my favorite romance authors, and that is Ali Hazelwood. She writes STEMness novels, so they're basically about women in STEM, which is super cool and really unlike anything else that I've recommended to you guys. She's kind of like in a genre of her own, so I have The Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, and Love Theoretically by her. I would definitely say that Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically are my favorites by her, but I still did really enjoy Love on the Brain too. This was her debut novel that made her like crazy famous on Book Talk. This one involves fake dating, and I absolutely fell in love with the fake dating trope in this book, and I love them. Adam and Olive are literally so stinking cute. This one is about Levi and Bee, and is an enemies to lovers, and they literally work at NASA, which is so freaking cool. This one is about Elsie and Jack, and she's literally fake dating Jack's brother. So yeah, and in this one, Jack just reads Elsie so easily. It's so cute. Their relationship in this one is just so precious, and I absolutely loved it. And the reason why I'm recommending these three is because I feel like during the winter time, again, you want to escape your reality because it's dark and dreary, and who likes that? But I feel like these have a little bit of a cozy element to them, and not only that, but the romances between all three of these couples are just so cute and wholesome, and I love Ali Hazelwood's writing, and it also supplies something a little bit different for you, because a STEMness romance is unlike anything else that I have recommended to you, or unlike anything else that you will probably be reading. And I don't know why, but I feel like these are just perfect for the winter time. And if you guys have not read anything by Ali Hazelwood, I highly recommend. She has the perfect mixture of romance while also talking about STEM, while also having good banter and a slow burn, and it's just so good. I love these books. They're so good. Definitely read one of these books if you haven't yet, which I'm sure you've heard about them because they're pretty popular. If you haven't, I'm so glad I introduced them to you. Now into mysteries, I actually only have one because it's a newer genre for me, and that is the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I haven't read The Inheritance Game yet, but I started on this, and this book was such a quick read. It was incredible. This book is basically a young adult Criminal Minds, and it's about this girl named Cassie, and she gets sent to this program, which is like a young adult Criminal Minds thing, and all these kids have different gifts, and they all try to solve cold cases together. The rest of the series is definitely on my winter TBR. I actually have the second one, Killer Instincts, right here, that I'm definitely going to be reading this winter. I just absolutely loved it, and I'm just thinking, like, for winter, I feel like mysteries are perfect, and these ones specifically are super bingeable too, and I feel like the winter time is a perfect time to binge books because you're not going outside, you're staying in, so you can just cozy on up on your couch and just pop this on your lap, read it super quickly. Like, this is a one one-day quick read. I'm pretty sure almost all of them are besides the last one, because the last one is a little bit longer, but the rest of these can definitely be done in one day, and I just feel like they're perfect for the winter. Don't know how else to explain it besides vibes alone, so hopefully they speak for themselves. Okay, now into my winter TBR. We're gonna go ahead and start out with fantasy. The biggest thing probably on my winter TBR, out of every genre, out of every book that I want to read, is the Throne of Glass series. I actually did already start it. I started on Assassin's Blade, and I know it's super controversial what book to start with and stuff like that, what order you read this book in, if you read it first, third, or fourth. I'm reading it first. That's just how I decided to do it, and I'm a little bit into it and really enjoying it so far. These are by Sarah J. Maas. We all know who that woman is, obviously. ACOTAR, Crescent City, all that stuff. I also really do want to read Crescent City too. I don't know how quickly I'm gonna get into that, especially because I don't even own the books yet, but I do want to read that as well. These books are basically about an assassin named Selena Sardothian, and that's really all I know, and I don't want to spoil it for you, nor do I want to spoil it for me by saying anything about the plot, because I just have no idea, and I want to be surprised and want to figure it out as I go. So I'm gonna let you do that too, and I'm excited. I think I'm gonna have a reading vlog coming out of me reading this entire series, just because the series is so popular, and I want to talk to you guys on all your thoughts on this series. And yeah, I don't know, I'm super excited to get into this and see what all the hype is about. Next up is the Caraval trilogy by Stephanie Garber. Stephanie Garber actually wrote the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy too that I talked about earlier and that I loved. That trilogy is actually after this trilogy, so I kind of read them out of order, but I was just super excited to read that trilogy, so I did it. But now I'm going back. We're gonna read the Caraval trilogy. This is set in the same world as Once Upon a Broken Heart. They're still YA, still very fairy tale-y, and I've heard that Jax from that series is introduced in these 3 books, so I'm excited because he's one of my favorite characters in the other books, so we can get a little bit more Jax, which is great. I honestly don't know anything else about this book. I guess it's about a girl named Scarlet and a girl named Tella, and I think that's really all I know. I think my favorite thing though about Stephanie Garber is you never know what that girl's gonna write about. You never know what's gonna happen next. You could guess something, it could be something totally different. These are almost like a fairy tale fantasy mystery, and I just love them. I love never knowing what's coming next or what's going in Miss Garber's brain. So I'm very excited for this, especially because Once Upon a Broken Heart is one of my favorite series of like all time. Next up we have The Renegades. This is a trilogy and this is by Marissa Meyer. This is basically about superheroes, and that's all I know. I think some people say this is more sci-fi than fantasy, but I guess there's the Renegades and then there's villains. I don't know, and then there's a girl named Nova. I think that's our main character. I've heard a lot of great stuff about this. I'm pretty sure this is YA as well. And yeah, I love superheroes. I love Marvel, and I've heard, ooh, oh dang it, there's a coupon for Barnes in here, but I bought this like forever ago and I forgot it was in here, so that's really sad. Anyways, I've heard that if you love Marvel you will love this, so I'm very excited because I love Marvel. And then I have the One Dark Window duology by Rachel Gillig. These have been pretty popular too this year. A lot of people have been saying that this is their favorite fantasy book of the year. This is a gothic dark fantasy, and it's about this girl named Elspeth. Oh my gosh, I actually said that right. I'm so proud of myself. And basically she needs a monster, and I guess the monster is her, and she has to awaken the monster inside to save her kingdom. I don't know if that's right, but that's what I got from the back. So yeah, and it's only a duology. I love it whenever things are short and sweet, and I've just heard such great things, and I'm very excited. And now into the romances on my TBR. We're starting out with an Ali Hazelwood book. She just recently made her YA debut, and I'm actually asking for this one for Christmas. Otherwise, I am surprised that I have not bought it yet and read it because I have a problem. But it is called Check and Mate. It's basically about a girl who is really good at chess, and it just seems cute. I love Ali Hazelwood, so I'm gonna read it. Next up, I really want to finish the Dreamland Billionaire series. I have the last 2 in the series. The second one is Terms and Conditions, and the third one is The Final Author. I've had this on my TBR for over a year, so it is time to get into this one at least. So this is a trilogy, and each of these books follow a different brother. Basically their grandfather, he owned like Disney World. They call it Dreamland in the books though, and they're all like billionaires, super successful, but they have these tasks that they have to do to get what their grandfather left them in his will, and basically get sole custody of the Dreamland enterprise, or else it's going to their dad, who sucks. That's what I remember anyways. I'll be honest, I'm kind of nervous because I read the first one at the beginning of this year and I really loved it, but that was before I was reading multiple books in a month, and it took me a really long time to finish it, and I'm just kind of nervous that it's gonna put me in a slump, which I don't know why, even though I really enjoyed reading it. They are a little bit longer than normal romance books, so I just have to make sure, I think, that I'm in the right mood whenever I read these. But speaking of these, I am super excited because there's actually another spin-off of this series. So all three of these are interconnected standalones. And then the spin-off is the Lakefront Billionaires. And the first one of that just came out. It's called Love Redesigned. I am so excited to have this in my hands. And the biggest reason why I want to read these so bad is to get to this one because I have heard nothing but amazing things about this one. This has been 5 stars for so many of the people that I watch on YouTube and on BookTok and Bookstagram, everywhere. So many people love this book and I'm so excited. The last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series is held in a small town and this one is in that small town, and I think the rest of the series will be in the small town. And also I just love the color purple, so I'm excited to read it. I don't really know what it's about. It's about Julian and Dahlia. That's all I want to know. So yay. Next up, we have Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Let's not talk about the fact that I don't have the original covers because I waited way too long to buy them. The new covers aren't that bad though. I really wish I had the original covers. Again, don't really know what this book is about either. I just know it's about Magnolia and BJ, and I've just heard billions of wonderful things about these books. I know that they're super miscommunication-y and kind of toxic, but in like a super interesting and fun way to read about. I've heard a lot of people say that this is Gossip Girl but set in London. I really hope I love it. I've been waiting to read the series for a really long time and I'm really excited, and I really hope I can get to this winter. Okay, that is going to be it for all my winter book recommendations and my winter TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any other books that you think are perfect for the winter time or any books that you think I should read during the winter, let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video and are enjoying Bookmas. And I think that's it. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.